What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the HBCU NFL Report, where we keep you guys updated on your favorite Black college football stars in the pros. I am Symone Stanley. He is Luke Williams, and we are here to recap Week 3. Luke, Week 2. Both of our teams came away with the win this week. Shout out to your Steelers, Kenny Pickett, all the boys.
About time. We would do a win after we laid a real egg in Week 1. And, of course, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got 2 defensive touchdowns against the Cleveland Browns. You know, beating them is no news. We beat them all the time. But certainly we had to struggle. The offense is still struggling. But very good to get that 26-21 win over the Cleveland Browns. And,
yes. So y'all know my Eagles, we got a win over the Vikings. Week 3, y'all have the Raiders. We have the Buccaneers. So we'll see if we're both still smiling in Week 3. But we have to get to some news. We have some bad news and some good news. Let's start with the bad news. James Houston, former Jackson State University star turned Detroit Lion, did go down with an injury. So he has an ankle injury. He's expected to be out 6 to 8 weeks. He was placed on IR. So when you're placed on IR, you have to be out at least 4 weeks. They're saying 6 to 8 weeks. The Lions are definitely going to miss that pressure up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, James Houston had missed the first 8 weeks last year as he was on the practice squad. Is going to really be out almost the equivalent this time, at least that amount, after fracturing his ankle in the game this past Sunday when the Lions played and lost to Seattle 37-31. Yeah, he's a big loss. For some reason, he didn't play in that first game, that win over Kansas City, but he came back and was appearing. He did start this past Sunday against Seattle. He did not start and did not even play in game 1. But he did start against Seattle, and he had 1 assisted tackle. But yeah, they are very much relying on his pressure from that right outside linebacker position. So to be missing him for 6 to 8 weeks, let's see if when he came in, the Lions was part of their turnaround a year ago. So let's see with him out if his absence has a similar effect on the Lions as they go forward.
On the good news front, somebody coming off injury, Tariq Cohen. So Tariq Cohen spent the past couple of years managing and battling a bunch of different injuries, but especially a knee injury that he has been dealing with. Former North Carolina A&T star turned Chicago Bear. Now he has an opportunity with the Carolina Panthers. He is on their practice squad now, supposedly getting revved up and ready to make his debut any week now.
And, that's something that all HBCU fans, particularly the A&T, the Aggie fans, are looking forward to. The Aggies have had a lot of bad luck when it comes to their players. When you start talking about people like Brandon Parker with the Raiders, who is missing his 2nd straight year with an injury, as well. Mac McCain, who has floated between 2 or 3 teams, the Eagles being one of them, and also the Panthers. I did see Mac McCain on the sidelines at the Aggies game when they opened the season a couple of weeks ago. So they've had some bad luck, but this is certainly good news and good luck for the Aggies. Tariq Cohen, perhaps on the offensive side, probably the most dynamic HBCU player we had in the NFL over the past 4 or 5 years. All-pro as a kick returner, running back / kick returner for the Chicago Bears. So the information they're saying so far, Frank Reich, the coach, says that he's looked very good. That's the reason they signed him to begin with, that in his workouts, he looked like the old Tariq Cohen. And then their special teams coordinator for the Panthers has talked about that he's slowly making progress. I would say, based on what I've read, maybe 2 weeks before they'll actually maybe try him out to get him back on the field. And that will be a big boom, certainly from the HBCU folks, because Tariq Cohen was probably the most exciting, the most prolific HBCU offensive player over the past few years before the whole Jackson State, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders group came in. The man rushed for 1,000 yards each of his 4 seasons at A&T. 3-time, I think he was MEAC Offensive Player of the Year. Broke not only the A&T rushing record, but he broke the MEAC rushing record, and he finished second all time, only behind Richard Huntley out of Winston-Salem State in rushing during his HBCU career. Number 2 all-time, Tariq Cohen. So to see him get back on the field certainly brings, we've talked about the shortage, if you will, or the short number of HBCU players on offense. If he's able to get back on the field, being that we've lost people like Trenton Canton and others who are no longer in the league, it will certainly be a boon for just in terms of us looking at what HBCU players are doing in the NFL. He was, quote unquote, a star, an all-pro. So, after almost 3 years out of the league, to have him back in the league, even on the practice squad right now, and be looking forward to him getting back on the field and showing his speed and his talent, which earned him that all-pro designation, is going to be very, 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 as you said, very much good news, not only for Tariq Cohen, not only for A&T fans, but HBCU fans in general.
And Panthers fans, because they need a boost to that
Yes,
offense.
they do.
So
Yes.
they're 0-2 now. Things aren't looking up on the offensive side of the ball. So hopefully Tariq Cohen can add a spark when they release him off from the practice.
Yeah, and one of the things that Tariq has said is that he's very happy to be back in North Carolina, being that, this is where he came to do his rehab. This is where he, in addition to his knee injury that knocked him out, he also tore his Achilles during the process of rehabilitation. So he's had more than a couple of setbacks. He had some personal challenges and setbacks that he's had to deal with over these last 2 or 3 years. So he's saying being home in North Carolina, where the Aggie fans are very familiar with him. He was born in North Carolina, grew up in this area. So to be back with the Panthers is probably good for him in a lot of ways. So we, as you said, very much looking forward to him getting back on the field.
All right, let's get into our players of the week for week 2. Starting on the defensive side of the ball, we have Grover Stewart from the Indianapolis Colts. He had 5 tackles, 2 solo tackles, and a quarterback hit in their win over their rivals, the Texans.
And, how much surprised are people that the Colts can be 2-0 so far without their star running back, who they have not signed yet, who I'm sure somebody is going to pick up along the way. But Stewart has kind of, in a sense, he's kind of moved into a leading role as a defender for the Colts. We're still waiting for Shaquille Leonard to return to his all-pro form. He did play. He had 3 solo tackles in that win over Houston. But Grover Stewart has become a mainstay in the offensive line. Nose tackle, defensive tackle out of Albany State, has been playing well. And he was able to, this week there was several good defensive efforts from HBCU players. Marquise Bell, who was our player of the week a year ago, particularly your player of the week a year ago for the Cowboys. They knocked off the New York Jets.
You had it right the first time.
Yeah, they beat the 2 New York teams now, the Jets and the Giants. I don't know what that's worth. Everybody's talking about how potent and stout the Cowboys' defensive lineup is. But Marquise Bell did not start this game, but he played quite a bit, and he had 4 tackles total, 3 solos. So he had another good week. Another kid from last year who was a second-year player, Kobe Durant, also had a good game. The Rams played San Francisco, the 49ers, a whole lot better than the Steelers did, only a 30-23 loss. But Durant, who again didn't start, but he had 4 tackles, he had 2 solos, and a pass breakup. So we had some people to choose from. I mentioned Shaquille Leonard, who had 3 solo tackles. Brian Cook out of Kansas City also had 2 tackles, a solo, and defended 1 pass as Kansas City knocked off Jacksonville, even their record at 1-1 with a 17-9 win over Jacksonville. So there were some defensive performers to choose from this week, but I thought Grover Stewart, with his stellar play on the defensive line, one of them was a quarterback hit. It was not a sack, but he did get a hit on the quarterback. One of those tackles was in the backfield. I think it was for no gain. So Grover Stewart is our defensive player of the week, well earned.
Offensive player of the week. We have one this week. It is Emanuel Wilson, who made his NFL debut with the Green Bay Packers. So Emanuel Wilson out of Fort Valley State University. We're getting to see him now in the regular season. During the preseason, he was like one of the most electrifying players in the NFL preseason. So Aaron Jones goes down for the Packers, their star running back, and it's, of course, a next man up league. So we're going to see more of Emanuel Wilson, hopefully, as the weeks go on.
Yeah, and we've chronicled how he earned his spot with the Packers. Nobody was expecting an undrafted free agent to knock out two other players that most had penciled in as being backups to A.J. Dillon as well as Aaron Jones. So for Emanuel Wilson to come out in his second game in the NFL, his first actual game, second game for the Panthers, they had a tough game because Atlanta was we got a couple of HBCU players there. Nobody that did anything this week, but they did lose to Atlanta 25-24. But Emanuel Wilson got his NFL baptism. He had 3 carries for 7 yards. That's only 1.7 yards per carry. But the key thing is he had a 7-yard run and a 3-yard run. His first carry was for -3 yards. They ran him to the left. He lost 3 yards, but his other 2 carries were productive. So he ended up with 10 yards in 3 carries, which is not a whole lot, but it is something to say that they have already gone to him, look to him to be a backup for that team. And if Jones does not come back, he will probably get more carries going forward. But it was a baptism for him. And again, we are still short in the offensive arena in terms of how many guys are still out. Guys like Teron Armstead, guys like also what's his name for Houston? Titus Howard for Houston. Yeah, they're both still out. They have not played in those first 2 games. Some other guys are getting in, like Trent Scott played some for the Washington Commanders against Denver. Ja'Tyre Carter, who was a draft pick last year out of Southern for Chicago, actually started for the Bears. There's a lot of talk about how the Bears are struggling on offense and how much Justin Fields is struggling. But Ja'Tyre Carter has moved into the starting lineup for the Bears, so we'll keep our eye on that. But in terms of we're looking for offensive players, have to keep an eye on Emanuel Wilson, because if he gets really any kind of production, we will probably be choosing him as the player of the week going forward. And hopefully he'll get more carries for the Packers.
All right, now we get to our special teams player of the week for week 2. This guy is 2 for 2. He was basically 17 for 17, maybe 16 for 17 last year, but it's Jamie Gillan. He punted 3 times for 111 yards for the New York Giants in their narrow escape win over the Arizona Cardinals.
I don't know if the biggest surprise may be the fact that the Cardinals, with a former Steeler, Josh Dobbs, playing quarterback, have come close to winning their first 2 games, but they did lose to the Giants. And as you said, Jamie Gillan was his usual reliable self. He punted, like you said, 3 times. He downed 1 inside the 20, only had a 42-yarder. But again, we're not choosing from much. There was not very much play in terms of other HBCU players on special teams. There are others who play special teams, but they didn't have any stats. So as long as that's the case, we'll probably be, as you said, choosing Jamie Gillan as our special teams player of the week. So, of the 3, I thought that we still are heavy defensively in terms of having some choices, but our offense and special teams choices are few and far between.
You always make it seem like you don't want to pick Jamie.
Well, no, it's not that we really don't have any choice because, like you said,
you don't have to tell them that though, Lou. They don't know that.
Without Trenton Cannon and guys like him, Danny Johnson out of the Commanders has been hurt. He returned kicks for a while. We've had a lot of guys that have been on special teams. Even in past years, we've had a plethora of HBCU players playing on special teams. But it's kind of, we have slim pickings. And I'm, more power to Jamie Gillan out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's one of 3 Pine Bluff products in the NFL. And obviously, in his 5th or 6th year, he's doing quite well.
Well, the Giants play San Fran tonight, so I think Jamie Gallard is going to be putting in a lot of work punting that ball.
You're probably absolutely right. He'll be punting. When we played him, Presley Harvin was punting every time I looked up. He was punting. So, yeah, San Francisco's defense is tough. Even though I thought the Rams, I didn't think the Rams were that much better than the Steelers. But
well, Matthew Stafford to Kenny.
He played well, and they battled the 49ers for the entire game. So. It just tells you how much more the Steelers, us black and yellow, black and gold Steelers, how much more we got to work on.
Absolutely. Well, y'all, we will see tonight Giants, San Francisco, Thursday Night Football. This is the Week 2 edition of the HBCU NFL Report on HBCU Game Day. I am Symone Stanley. He is Luke Williams. Until we talk to you guys next time.